Biotechnology, IIIT Allahabad, and Honorary Professor at CBMR CGPGI Campus, Lucknow. She is Senior Scientist, Fellow of National Academy of Science, India, and also served as General Secretary of this oldest science academy of the country. Besides, she is Chief Advisor, Indian Pesticides Limited, Lucknow, had been Member Advisory Board, Biotechnical Park, Lucknow. She was awarded NASI Platinum Jubilee Senior Scientist Fellowship. She is Chairperson of STEM Program of DST and Chemistry Advisory Board of UPC-ST. She has been expert in many selection committees, including AGMU, SGPGI Lucknow, and is also in editorial boards of many national and international journals. She is member advisory board of Department of Molecular Medicines, CGPGI MS Lucknow. Professor Krishna Mishra received her PhD in 1964 from Delhi University. She was fortunate to pursue her research under supervision of late Professor T.R. Shashidhar, FRS and Padma Bhushan. From 1966 to 1999, worked at Allahabad University as lecturer, reader, and professor. She has supervised 55 scholars towards PhD and has published 250 papers, 4 books, about 25 reviews, a dozen book chapters, presented papers in about 100 national and international conferences. She holds India and US patents, visited Japan as a UNESCO fellow, visited UK, sponsored a British Council, visited USA, invited paper, talk, chair, number of times an invitation to present her work. She has been awarded a large number of research projects, including 3 prestigious international projects from USA. She has been member of Task Force of Biotechnology for Central Government and is founder member and fellow of several national international science societies. She has delivered lectures all over India and abroad about her research work in INSPRIE workshops on women empowerment, climate change, scientific writing, etc. A strong academician, administrator, true researcher, above all, an inspiration to many in her field, is also an inspiration for all of us in this FDP. A great duo on the stage today. We would be eager to see the deliberations of the 2 eminent dignitaries in the session. I am concluding here.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor K. Chidananda Gowda to give his talk on micro-learning versus universal intelligence. Over to Chidananda Gowda, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Am I visible also?
You are visible as well as. Yes, sir. You are visible as well as audible, sir. Please go ahead, sir. Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I sincerely thank all the organizing members, and very good afternoon to the learned chairperson and all the professors who are attending this FDA program. My topic is micro-learning. It's also called as bit-sized learning. The micro-learning generally should not exceed about 20-25 minutes and so on. So my talk will be in 2 parts. One will be about the micro-learning, and then an example related to artificial intelligence. So both will take around 20 to 25 minutes. First of all, I will be talking about the micro learning, or the also known as the bite-sized learning. Here we should note this byte. There is another byte which you are familiar, BYTE, which is used with the data science, but this is not that byte, BYTE. This is BITE. This is related to food. So don't bite off. This is a proverb. Don't bite off more than you can chew. So don't bite off more than you can chew. This applies to food and body, and this applies to mind also. So we should not give more than a bite to the mind also. What is that bite-sized learning? We will see. So this is what is known as the micro learning, or it's also called as bite-sized learning units, and short time learning activities. So it is called micro learning, bite-sized learning. It consists of bite-sized learning units, small learning units. Not even 1 hour. You will see that even 1 hour is more. Our lectures should not be of 1 hour duration also. And short time learning activities. So for that, you have to consider human attention span. So they have done a lot of research and found that the human attention span is just 20 minutes. The salient issue is that human attention span is limited, which many researchers have stated that it lasts for a maximum of 20 minutes in 1 hour. Therefore, the human attention capacity should not be stretched beyond its natural tendencies. So it is advocated that lectures be planned to a maximum of 20 minutes on a topic to accommodate the limited human attention span. Suppose if it is a 1 hour lecture duration means, so the teacher should talk only for 20 minutes and other 40 minutes for discussions and for any other activity and so on. It is like that. And examples are, for example, TED Talks. The duration is around 20 minutes, and Arvind Ash talks on scientific topics also around 20 minutes and so on. They have considered the human attention span. We have an example for a micro speech. We did not speak for 20 minutes also. So what we can do in 3.5 minutes, we can see. A micro speech was delivered in the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago, USA on September 11, 1893. The duration was just 3.5 minutes. Just 3.5 minutes. It consisted of just 473 words. But it electrified the entire audience. And in one day, the speaker became world famous. And he is none other than Swami Vivekananda. Speaker was Swami Vivekananda. Just 3.5 minutes talk. What is the philosophy of this micro learning or bite-sized learning? So that is based upon a quotation by the famous French author Exupéry. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. That is the thing. Nothing left to take away. We'll have to consider that. Anything added over and above that, but that is not the important thing. Micro learning is the application of this principle in the realm of learning in general and e-learning in particular. The instructors are expected to inspire the learners by skimming the fat and giving their learners only the essentials. We should skim the fat and give only the essentials to the learners.
Sir, sorry
It's
to
also
interrupt
related
you.
to what is
Sir,
known as.
Sir, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you. Your slide is not visible, sir. Please share the slide, sir.
I have shared this
Slide is not shared, sir.
from the beginning itself. I was sharing actually.
So can you share it again, sir?
Again, okay.
Sir,
Okay.
sir, please go to the present now option, sir. Present now.
Okay. I will end this.
Don't end it, sir. Don't end it, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Wait. Now,
Sir, right side bottom, you can see an option, something called as present now.
Wait, just a minute.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Why the present now? It is actually, I don't know. It is missing. Present now is. I don't see it. Now my first slide is on my screen, but that present now earlier it was visible, but now it is not visible.
Sir, you just move your mouse down, sir. Like you can see that option.
Yes,
You will find
actually I'm moving.
bottom of the screen, sir. You can see day 1,
Yes,
session
yes.
2.
Go to the Google Meet window in the Explorer, sir.
Yes, yes. I will do it again. I think I will go. I will go to the Google.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
This is
Yes, sir.
you have sent. I see here 2, 3. One is sent by link for session 2. Is not link for session 2. I'll have to click.
Sir.
Okay.
Sir, you have already joined, sir. Not an issue. There, you will be having an option on this Google Meet window itself, sir.
I came from the beginning now because you are not seeing. So I'm coming from the beginning. I'm clicking the link of for session 2 now. Okay.
Sir.
Sir, go to the Explorer. You're already there. Can you see us all on the screen, sir?
Yes, I used to see it, but now.
Go to the tab in the Explorer where you can see all of us. Meet.google.com.
No, I will have to join again now. No, I'm joining again now. From the beginning,
Sir.
I'm joining. Getting ready to
sir.
join now. You accept?
Okay, sir.
You get me in.
Okay, sir. Okay. I'll admit you again, sir. I'll remove you and shall I admit you again, sir?
Yes, that's what I'm doing. I clicked that getting ready now, and now
No, sir,
I'm clicking join now.
Sir,
clicking join now.
No, sir. I'm removing you now, sir. Now you can try it again, sir, please.
And now
KCG, sir, we are able to see the screen now. You can continue, sir.
Yes,
Slides
sir.
are shared. Can you turn the mic on, sir?
Sir, please turn the mic on, please.
Mic and video, both you turn on, sir.
Is it okay now? Do you
Yes,
see
sir.
the mic?
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir, please
Now-
open the present. You can go ahead, sir, please.
Now, is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. So I'm visible and I'm audible also. Hmm?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Hello. Sir, actually, I thought this number is Chidanand sir number, sir. So I called. I got mistaken, sir. Sorry, sir. Sorry. Thank you.
Sudhir, mute yourself, please.
I think we stopped here in a micro speech of 3.5 minutes by Swami Vivekananda and how it electrified the entire audience. Philosophy also we have seen, based upon the French author Exupéry, when there is nothing else left to be taken away. This is the philosophy. And it's also related to less is more and small is beautiful. So small is beautiful. That's also one of the philosophies of this. So the characteristics of micro learning. Is it okay now? Characteristics of micro learning.
Please go ahead, sir.
Someone is talking actually. Characteristics of micro learning are: one is brevity. It should be short, but include the essence. That is one thing. Then second is what is known as granularity. It focuses on a narrow topic, concept or idea. And the varieties are possible. The content can be in the form of a video, audio, write-up, presentation, activity, game, discussion, quiz, test, or any other format from which learning is possible. What is actually micro learning? The soul of micro learning, as we have seen, is brevity. It consists of bite-sized small learning units or short duration learning activities. Provides bytes of content, not large content, but bytes of content which learners can study at their convenience. It is less time consuming and more engaging, easy to deploy and budget friendly. It is also known as the kid brother of e-learning. It is a kid brother of the e-learning. Generally, it is smartphone based, but not always necessary. May use smart cards comprising text, audio, video, infographics, and info games. And there are many types of micro learning content will be there. It can be text, pictures, audio, video, infographics, info games, quizzes, short tests, continuous assignments, assessments, and so on. Some activities can be memorizing a word or a formula, reading a short text or code, listening to a short podcast, watching a short video clip, writing, reading a poem, drawing a viewing a painting, learning with micro games, answering quizzes, selecting answers, reading a flashcard, using a smart card, sorting a set of items, study an infographics, a presentation. It can be in many forms. So what are the applications in higher education we will see? So one is learning a new language. Example, there is one app known as a Duolingo which is available. So which is very good for learning. Using English, you can learn some 30 foreign languages. Second is getting higher proficiency in any language you can get. And short lectures and tutorials. It is making continuous assessments. This is very good. Short lectures and tutorials, and also for making continuous assessments, doing short quizzes, entering a new field of knowledge, getting to know a new software, giving and getting new ideas from others, subject-based podcasting. And micro-learning examples in industries. Now mainly it is used in industries, but for only a few cases in higher education. But in future, so it will be very useful for higher education if you use it. It is very much used in industries. First is employee welcome, teaching all that the new employees need to know using nuggets of information about the company. And just-in-time training, useful for updating training contents Whenever need arises about new products or workflow, training new employees empowers them to learn on the job and allows them to quickly refer back. Compliance training, ideal for employees to learn a small number of simple and important rules. For customer relation jobs, useful to provide specifications, product details, troubleshooting, and meeting customer demands. And professional skill training with the use of smart cards comprising text, audio, video, infographics, and info games. So in industries, it is very much used. To a greater level. So what are the dimensions of this micro learning? One is time, relatively short and subjective. And the other is what is the content, small and narrow topics. Third is curriculum, small part of a curriculum. And form is knowledge nuggets and skill elements. So this is the form, knowledge nuggets and skill elements. Process is integrated activities, attention management. Integrated activities, all the activities must be integrated, and the management of attention also. The media will be any, it will be print media, electronic media, multimedia, and the learning type can be anything, repetitive, self-learning, classroom learning, corporate learning, any type of learning we can adopt in this. And what are the benefits of micro learning? We will see. Any place, anytime learning, that is the learning of 21st century. It enables learners to have any place, any time, casual, short stint learning in spare time. Learners get joyful experience, the other advantage. It's most engaging experience similar to that of social apps on smartphones compared to regular training. To boost knowledge retention, micro learning research has shown that when studies something repeatedly and revisits it, when one is close to forgetting it, then retention is better. It's faster to build. One can build a course with dozens of units in an hour or two, and hence enables to respond faster to changing learning and training demands. It is cheaper to produce. It is much more cheaper to produce a course as it requires just a regular LMS content editor. A micro learning platform like Talent LMS will greatly help. It is very much flexible. One can create courses that give a broad overview of a topic, or even create courses for complex topics. And immediate results. Micro learning enables a learner to quickly close a small knowledge gap or skill gap. This is one of the advantages. Immediate results. Easy for tagging. Small chunks of instructional content can be tagged for easy search and access and reuse. And it is least disruptive. Busy people appreciate this as it is not as disruptive as a day of training or even an hour or two of e-learning. But there are some limitations also. As advantages, there are some limitations. One is not ideal for complex concepts. If there is a complex concept, then it requires more efforts to deliver complex concepts as they are to be broken down into simple parts. Not suited for in-depth training. It is not the best approach for in-depth study. Third, learning in fragments. For long-term learning goals, content fragments are not desirable. Lack of cognitive synthesis. The learners may not synthesize the content. These are some of the limitations. And potential for confusion. Variety of formats is there. So potential for confusion is also there. And there are some best practices of micro learning. Study the suitability. If the topic is complex and requires in-depth study, this is not suitable unless you break it into several parts. Capture the essence. Write a short and focused content of the topic. Use multimedia. Use illustrations, photos, videos, animations to sustain interest. Use gamification. Suitably include so as to boost engagement and interest. Use micro assessments to assess progress. Use mini tests, short quizzes continuously, or any other methods you can use for assess. And there are ways of using micro learning. learning languages or topics that require repetition, learning a software application, business processes and procedures, interacting with case studies, practicing micro skills that build into larger skills, applying best practices. And there are micro learning apps are available. There are some free apps as indicated here. Is some of the free apps, and then there's some paid apps are also there, where we can find micro courses. A few platforms and our websites offer micro learning courses like Grovo, that is teaches professional skill with 60-second videos. Just note it, the videos are of duration 60 seconds only. And there is another one known as CourseMass, in a platform that supports micro courses and daily bits of short courses delivered by email also. Now this is the end of my first e-learning presentation, end of micro learning and beginning of a micro learning example. So what I described hitherto, I am showing it with an example. So this example will take about 20 minutes or so. So as you have seen, the soul of micro learning is brevity, at increase of bite-sized small learning units or short duration learning activities, not more than 20 minutes. So now I have divided the artificial intelligence course. Nowadays I give lectures on artificial intelligence by dividing them into micro learning units. So each unit takes about 20 minutes. Micro learning, one is what is known as universal intelligence, and the second is what is known as the natural intelligence. Universal intelligence is the intelligence, primordial intelligence in the universe, and micro learning 2 is natural intelligence, which intelligence you find in living beings. So in particular in human beings. Micro learning 3 is artificial intelligence, its history. That will take about 20 minutes. Micro learning artificial intelligence present, what is the present status? That takes about 20 minutes. And then micro learning 5, artificial intelligence, this is futuristic. Now starting from now, 2020 to 2050, what will happen? So that is micro learning 5. So micro learning 6 is artificial intelligence from 2050 to 3000, what may happen, So this is the entire landscape of artificial intelligence can be divided into micro learning units. Now today I will cover only the first one. So micro learning 1, that is the universal intelligence, which is the primordial intelligence in the universe. So this is what Wayne Dyer, the internationally renowned American author, says. There is a universal intelligence we call God or soul or spirit or consciousness, and it is everywhere and in all things. And what does Einstein tell about this, about super intelligence? It's very interesting what Einstein said. A scientist is possessed by the sense of universal causation. His religious feeling takes the form of rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, which reveals an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is an untruly insignificant reflection. This is what it does, in a succinct form, we can indicate this, universal intelligence. He talks about the intelligence of such superiority, that is a background intelligence of the universe. And the second one, he talks about the harmony of the natural laws and the natural intelligence, and all the living beings have natural intelligence, and human beings have created this artificial intelligence. So the parallel there are regarding this, there are many parallel sayings of famous scientists, Nobel laureates, and also the spiritual masters. For example, Albert Einstein tells, according to general relativity, the concept of space detached from any physical content does not exist. It's what Einstein tells. And what the Buddha tells is this, almost similar, you see, if there is only empty space with no suns and planets in it, then space loses its substantiality, is what great Buddha tells. See the similarity between the two. Then another one, by H.P. Staff, another famous scientist, he tells, everything we know about nature is in accord with the idea that the fundamental process of nature lies outside space-time but generates events that can be located in space-time. And if you see what Vivekananda tells, it's almost similar. Time, space, and causation are like the glass through which the absolute is seen. In the absolute, there is neither time, space, nor causation. So this is what Fred Hoyle, the famous British astronomer, so in his book The Intelligent Universe tells, the universe cannot be fully explained unless the principle of intelligence is introduced into it. And there is the invisible power in the universe, and there is a primordial intelligence also. Great discovery of the 20th century, according to science journalists, the universe is expanding. It also tells that great discovery of this century, 21st century, is invisible power in this expanding universe is 73%. They say invisible power in this expanding universe is 73%. The probes, WMAP probe and SDSS probe, having captured the remnant radiation after the Big Bang and analyzing the same, conclude one, energy perceived by the eyes in the universe is 4%. Whatever we see in millions of stars and galaxies and so on, that is only 4% of the universe. And 23% energy is perceivable, but not yet perceived in the universe. It is known as dark matter. And the third is invisible energy, dark energy in the universe, which is 73%. Scientists have discovered that an invisible power exerts a lot of influence on this expanding universe. And they ask, some of these scientists ask the question, is this the primordial intelligence of creation? No one knows. So, now we started with the consciousness. So, consciousness is found not only in human beings, not only in animals, but in plants and rocks also. That consciousness just exists in the inanimate rocks. Consciousness lights up the sense organs of plants. In the case of plants, it lights up the sense organs. In the case of animals, slightly better. Consciousness lights up the sense organs and the mind. Whereas in the case of human beings, consciousness lights up the sense organs, mind, and intellect of the humans. And ever-existing pure intelligence based on quantum field theory, string theory, and unified field theory, there is an ever-existing pure or universal intelligence which is the source of all matter and forces in the universe. I will read it again. There is an ever-existing pure or universal intelligence which is the source of all matter and forces in the universe. According to Newtonian paradigm and quantum paradigm, you see the main difference here. In the Newtonian paradigm, we start with elementary particles, and then we have these atoms from elementary particles. Then we have the molecules, and then we have the cells, and then the living beings, and then we have the brain, and then consciousness. What Newtonian paradigm and many of the scientists say that the consciousness is produced by the brain, but the quantum paradigm so shows other directions. So according to that, consciousness is the beginning, and then the consciousness produces elementary particles, and then the elementary particles produce atoms, and then they produce molecules, and then they produce cells, produce the living beings, and then the brain. So here in the previous Newtonian paradigm, brain produces consciousness, but according to quantum paradigm, consciousness is the basis. And Indian spirituality also tells the same thing. So about which you will see later. Consciousness is the basis. Our spiritual also tells. Here, consciousness at the bottom of the pyramid. At the bottom, you see consciousness. Then you have physics. Then you have the chemistry, then biology, and then psychology, and so on and so on. According to consciousness, the famous scientist Wigner tells it will remain remarkable in whatever way our future concepts may develop, that the very study of the external world led to the scientific conclusion that the content of the consciousness is the ultimate reality. So Wigner is a Nobel Prize winner and one of the leading physicists of the 20th century. This is his opinion about the consciousness. About Planck, we have heard of the Planck Planck's length and so on. So what is his opinion? Science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature because in the last analysis, we ourselves are part of the mystery that we are trying to solve. That's what Max Planck tells. Consciousness and reality. The role of consciousness in the physical world can be tested. It has been tested many times and in many ways. Results suggest that consciousness is an active participant in reality. And John von Neumann, so his name comes in computer science also, in physics also. John von Neumann about double slit experiment of physics, it has actually US had released one stamp in his honor. He says, the measurement chain in the double slit experiment, quantum experiment, the measurement chain ends only when the knowledge of the measurement is registered by an extra physical factor like a human being. And he is not alone. Wigner, Heisenberg, Schrodinger, Planck, Jordan, Pauli, Dirac, and many others had similar opinion like von Neumann. And what does Arthur Eddington, the famous scientist, tell? He says, physics is the study of the structure of consciousness. The stuff of the world is mind stuff, according to Eddington. And which was the beginning? So the spiritual teachers tell, even in Indian tradition, intelligence was the beginning and material world came afterwards. Shankar and others tell this. Scientists tell material world was the beginning and intelligent beings evolved afterwards. And what did Swami Vivekananda tell about this? He tells, he quotes both of them and tells, both are correct. In an infinite series, it's immaterial. Whether you go from this side or that side, is what he tells in his book, Raja Yoga, Swami Vivekananda tells. This is, of course, we will not go. This equation of the theory of everything. All the forces are here in gravity, electromagnetism, strong force, weak force. They say that only a few scientists have understood the significance of this. And this unified field, the source of the universe, an interesting and amazing fact is that an objective world, independent of the observer, doesn't exist. The particles and the observer are linked at the quantum scale. The very act of observation affects the matter being observed. The realm of discrete objects is transcended and everything becomes united in an indivisible whole that is inherently subjective since nothing else exists but that. Matter is continuously emerging and dissolving back into an abstract, non-material unified field, ever existing and pure intelligence. The unified field is the ultimate reality, the source of the manifest universe. The frontiers of science now lies in discovering more about this transcendent field. This is some of the universal field. It is something like an ocean, which is calm at the bottom. It is a bottom, calm at the bottom, and it is not. It is a lot of waves and so on. Infinite dynamism is there. So they say that the source of the sea of unified field will be like this. The calm at the bottom, and so a lot of dynamism on the top. Here regarding this, there are one or two parallel sayings of scientists and spiritual teachers. David Bohm tells, matter is like a small ripple on this tremendous ocean of energy. We saw an ocean of energy. He talks about that. Matter is like a ripple on this tremendous ocean of energy, having some relative stability and being manifest. And in fact, beyond that ocean, there still be bigger ocean. The ultimate source is immeasurable and cannot be captured within our knowledge. This is what famous scientist David Bohm tells. And what about our Buddha tells? Buddha tells, universal mind is like a great ocean. Universal mind is like a great ocean. Surface is ruffled by waves. See, both tell almost in a similar way. Its surface is ruffled by waves and surges, but its depth remaining forever unmoved. It is quiet at the bottom and stormy on the surface. All the triple tell. Scientists say that this ocean of unified field is very stormy on the surface and gets calmer and quieter downwards. Because of the agitation on the surface, micro drops and bubbles will be formed and they will be floating. These micro drops are super strings. Most of the bubbles that flip upwards will be having dark energy and will be bursting and falling back into the ocean. And they say that there are millions of Milky Ways. Only those bubbles under the most favorable conditions go on expanding and become galaxies containing billions of stars and planets. We are in one such galaxy known as the Milky Way, which is continuously expanding. Our Milky Way is continuously expanding. The equations of unified field indicate billions of such galaxies in the universe. And you will see this is our galaxy, our Milky Way galaxy. No, and this is the universal intelligence, the ocean of universal intelligence. This is our Milky Way galaxy. So about 13.4 billion years ago, this the Big Bang occurred. They say that like this, there are several universes in this. So that is a multi-universe theory. This is our universe. We are inside this universe. Our solar system is inside this. Our Milky Way galaxy is inside this. They say that, scientists say that in the many universe theory, like this, there are many other universes also in the world. And our Indian spiritual traditions also tell the same thing. Not only this is our Brahmanda. There is one Brahma for this, and there will be several other Brahmandas for which there will be different Brahmas and so on. Is what our Indian spiritual traditions also tell. The mind at these subtle levels, the mind has a similar progression as that of matter. The surface level is our ordinary thinking awareness, which mediates our sense impressions of the macroscopic level of the universe. Beneath that surface lies subtler subconscious levels of mental activity that science is beginning to explore. Underlying it all is a transcendental field out of which thoughts arise and which mystics, artists, and philosophers of all cultures have contacted and described as a reservoir of intelligence, creativity, and dynamism. And are the unified field of physics and unified field of consciousness identical? There are two fields, If scientists they talk about the unified field of physics based upon quantum mechanics and string theory. And our wisdom tradition talks about unified field of consciousness. Our Upanishads and so on, they talk about consciousness. Are they identical? Is there any similarity in them? Even some distinguished physicists such as Niels Bohr and James Jeans went to the extreme of trying to replace the entirety of physical reality with human consciousness. And John Hagelin, he is a quantum scientist, of 21st century, quantum physicist, and Tony Nader, neuroscientist, and many other present day theoretical and experimental evidences that the unified field of physics and the unified field of consciousness are identical. Many people say that they are identical, but many people don't agree also. Meaning that during the meditative state, they say that during the meditative state, human awareness directly experiences the unified field at the foundation of the universe, the experience that ocean which we saw. So here you see physical world from the macro to the minimum. So here we have our world, our day-to-day world. Here is our ICT, and below that is classical physics, and below that is quantum physics. And then we went through several unifications. Unification 1 of the 4 forces, unification 2, unification 3, and then the united field and so on. This is what we see, the physical world from macro to micro. And here you see the comparison of the two. So here you see this is the physical world which I just shown. This is what they talk about consciousness, consciousness in the fourth state, and they speak the state of samadhi, which is known as the pure consciousness. They see the similarity between the two also. So there is that samadhi state is similar to this unified field. This is unified field of science, but unified field of consciousness. Many of the scientists agree to this, but of course some of the scientists don't agree also. So it is under discussion. And I mentioned about the wisdom tradition of India. So there are some sayings which are similar to what the scientists have tell. I'm closing in another 2-3 minutes. In Pratyabhijna Hridayam, so this is known as art of recognition of Kashmir Shiva philosophy. They tell Swatatra Vishwasiddhi Hetu, meaning is independent consciousness is the cause of manifestation, maintenance and dissolution of the universe. Independent consciousness is the cause of manifestation, maintenance and dissolution of the universe. And second one says that, Svetaya Swabhiktau Vishwam Unmilayate, meaning is through her own will, she unfolds the universe on her own canvas. On her own canvas, we see this universe. Tannana Anurupa Grahaya Grahaka Veda, meaning that the universe is multiple. We see the multiplicity in the universe, What is the reason Kashmir Shaiva philosophy tells? That the universe is multiple because of the differentiation of adapted objects and subjects. Subject-object differentiation. And the fourth one is Chiti Sankochatma Chetanopi Sankochita Vishamaya. This means the individual experience in whom there is a contraction of consciousness, also as the universe as its body, but in a contracted way. This is what the Kashmir Shaiva philosophy is somewhat similar to what we have seen here. And our Upanishads also talk in similar terms. One Prajnanam Brahma means consciousness, Brahma. They say Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. They say this entire universe is Brahma or consciousness. They tell Tattvamasi. They say you are that. That is the consciousness. You are the consciousness. You are the Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. This soul is Brahma. This is another saying. Like Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahma. These are all sayings. Which are similar. And this is conclusion, all pervading password. We are in the computer realm. So once a man asked God, why you don't fulfill my wishes if you are everywhere, God? And then God replies, I'm like a Wi-Fi, my child. I'm available everywhere, but you need to connect with me with a correct password. And what is that password? And he said, and the password is faith. And the soul, we will end, the soul of micro learning is brevity. It consists of bite-sized small learning units or short duration learning activities, not more than 20 minutes. And I sincerely thank the organizers and all the listeners and all the professors for participating in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your splendid presentation. I request Professor Krishna Mishra to take over the session. Madam.
Hello. Well, am I audible to everyone?
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
you are audible.
Okay. First of all, I must thank Professor Chidanand Gowda for such a brilliant, such a informative, and such an excellent narration of micro-learning. He started from micro-learning with that brilliant example of Vivekananda, how he spoke for a few minutes in Chicago, and that became the world famous speech ever. So that is the gist of learning, teaching concept. I think he has given the best example what can be of micro learning and also what we really need in today's learning teaching process. That should be, and how he brought, connected that micro learning to artificial intelligence, and then to, explaining what is consciousness, and connected it with such excellent philosophical narration of Brahma and, the real brain, mind, awareness, consciousness, and giving the last example, that wonderful example that you can connect to God if you know the password faith. I think there cannot be a better narration of consciousness and explanation of what I should say artificial intelligence than what he has described. Such a excellent, thought-provoking and informative narration I have rarely heard from. I'm really fortunate to hear him in so many words. I would explain. And and today's this thing is, we are discussing. I am really fortunate, and I'm thankful, grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to preside over this lecture. I'm really, I always think that what will happen, because the present pandemic, people are expecting that it should be over soon, but nobody is definite, what will be the future. And we have to very seriously think about our students, as teachers, that how are we going to impart them the real education. And as Professor Nagabhushan in his lecture, that was a wonderful lecture because he explained all aspects that how we should, on the teacher's part, the part of teachers is going to be really difficult in future. And I think our education policy, the new education policy, there are many points which are really good. One thing is flexibility. I think our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji is to be congratulated for bringing such a flexible syllabus for the future, Young India, what he calls. In his one sentence, which he said in that hackathon, that students in Young India will be learning what they want to, not that what the society wants them to. That's a big thing, because the students, they whatever. We are discussing that the concept, the fundamental basics should be taught to them, and then they should be left to apply for whatever is their interest. So I think this is a good thing that they can choose right from school level whatever they want to study or whatever they have the passion to. The part of teachers is going to be really difficult. I think especially at school level, I always feel that, as has been said, that the foundation should be very strong. Then only, for any building, any house, anything, any system, you have to have a very strong foundation. And that foundation should come from school level. I think the school teachers have to play a very important role in making the career for those students, in instilling in them in anxiety to learn, that passion to learn things, that is real learning. I think this is, I must congratulate the organizers for organizing such a wonderful program where such eminent people are meeting, educationists, scientists, and so many people are going to present their views. I think this is going to be very helpful in future in making what our Honorable Prime Minister calls Young India. So I hope that from 2022, they are going to implement things. We are very good in planning. I think Indians are very good in planning. I hope that implementation and execution is done properly. So that will be very, very good for the country and successful for the country. There are going to be, I think I have heard that many institutions now are starting on philosophical this thing, the artificial intelligence, what Professor Gowda has just explained in so many clear words. That meditation, yoga, that all traditional things should also be taught to students, because this is very, very essential, that right from beginning, they must be very, very much aware of what exactly what they are learning and how they will apply in their future lives. So with these words, I think I'm really grateful to organizers. They are doing very well, and I'll be very interested in listening to the lectures which are coming in future. And I think I must finally congratulate everyone. Thank you so much. there are any questions, I leave to organizers if there are any questions.
Yes, madam, we have some questions from our participants.
Sir, thanks for the excellent, exceptional, outstanding and mind-opener session, sir, on micro-learning versus universal intelligence. Thanks a lot, ma'am. I have a few queries, sir. So I selected few of them. So if you will permit, shall I ask, sir? Hello?
Pardon?
Yeah. Sir, how will micro-learning be best delivered and evaluated? Shall I repeat?
Yes. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. If the lecture if the duration of a class is 1 hour, if you consider the retention capability, the lecture should span only 20 minutes, not more than 20 minutes. Other 20 minutes, perhaps tutorials, other tutorials and discussions. Perhaps in other 20 minutes, for any other thing, a continuous assessment and so on, they can be used. So according to this, the 1 hour should be divided into 3 parts: 20 minutes for lecture, 20 minutes for tutorial, and 20 minutes for continuous assessment, like that. So I think that is what micro-learning suggests.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question is there, sir. Did universal design for learning and teaching aimed at meeting the needs of every student in a classroom?
It is for me or Madam Krishna Mishra, to whom it is addressed?
Sir, will.
What is that question? Not clear.
Did universal design for learning and teaching aimed at meeting the needs of every student in a classroom?
The students are every student is different student. Some one will understand it, the concepts in 5 minutes. Another may take 15 minutes. Another may take 2 hours, 2 days also. So we cannot give the same medicine for everyone. So seeing the capacity, so we should see how he should be he should be taught and how he should learn and so on. So for such things, this micro learning modules are very useful. If one may understand it, in one reading, but another person may not understand it. So twice or thrice it is to be repeated. For such things, this micro learning units, nuggets, they are very useful. They can be used by by brilliant students as well as ordinary students.
Thank you, sir. Sir, last question. What makes micro learning effective in employee training programs?
Employee training program, perhaps one full slide I had shown, some 7 or 8 ways in which they are being used now actually. So micro learning, they are used very much in industries. I indicated 7 or 8 ways in which by when someone joins a company, they give a brief overview of the company and so on. One may have a skill gap and so on. Then how to fill up that only gap and so on. So that is very useful like that. But only in higher education, it is not very much used. Only they use it for learning foreign languages and so on. But for other things, a lot of possibilities are there, and a lot of research is to be done in this area and how micro learning can be used in higher education and so on, considering lectures, tutorials, and continuous assessment and so on. So a lot can be done.
Thank you, sir.
Let me interrupt here, Dr. Kulkarni here. Sir, it was a great opportunity to listen to you today. Especially, we are totally blessed with 4 prominent people involved in this particular sessions. We have learned one thing: age is no bar for learning. So we have excellent views presented by very senior and eminent researcher and very staunch academician, Professor Krishna Mishra, who is 82 years now. Thank you, madam, for being presiding this particular session, presiding as a presiding chair. At the same time, none other than presiding for another septuagenarian, 78-year-old Professor Chidanand Gowda. And I am seeing two people sitting side by side on my screen, Professor Chidanand Gowda and Professor P. Nagbhushan, Guru Shishya Parampara, perfectly going, right? So I have seen many occasions, Guru beats Shishya and Shishya beats Guru. That competition is very inspiring for all of us. Okay, it's wonderful, sir. And at the same time, I am also privileged for having been associated with my mentor, Professor B.N. Chatterjee, who has taught me a lot. And in this path, I have understood what real research is, and I am also learning a lot about how research can be taken forward. Thank you very much, sir. In the capacity of organizing chair, I thank you all very much for blessing us in this particular moment. So first day was highly enthusiastic. I have seen the chats. Everyone is appreciative. They are eagerly looking forward for the slides. It is up to you, sir. If you wish to share, we will share it across. Otherwise, no problem. They will be anyway. YouTube link is available. They can see through it. Not a problem. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Over to Professor Shambhuling, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for reminding us that age is just only a number. Okay, so age is not bar for learning. So learning is a continuous process. I thank the distinguished professors, Miss Geeta Mishra, Krishna Mishra, and Professor Chidananda Gowda for sharing their valuable information. And I thank the distinguished professors for enlightening us on various aspects of teaching and learning. I also thank the participants for active participation. We have forwarded your questions and they will answer to your queries. I request you to fill the feedback form which will be sent to all of you very shortly. I request all the participants to join tomorrow's session, which starts exactly at 10:30 a.m. Thank you and happy learning till then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Team Gulbarga, and congratulations, Subhash. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for your kind support, sir.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
So now you have to get ready for tomorrow. Yes. So you please send the link to me also. I will participate tomorrow also.
Sure.
Thank you then. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor. Sir.
Namaskar to all.
Namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, kindly log out, sir.